Over the years, I've covered 19 Democratic and Republican political conventions, the ones that come up every 4 years, beginning in 1976 and running through 2016. I did not attend the one in 2020. And I always considered them a quadrennial temperature taking of the political thought and temperature, in a lot of ways, in our country, in the United States. And you could see the changes as they came along. Now, I was accredited as a member of the press, and these conventions would normally pull in about 16,000 accredited members of the press from all over the world. And we're covering about 2,000 delegates and 2,000 alternates, around 4,000. So you had 16,000 people covering 4,000 people. I would more commonly sit in the upper gallery, last row or two, where folks who are political functionaries out in somewhere in the country were there for one night. They were allowed to come in and sit there. And I'd sit and talk to these folks and see who they are. I'd also go out on the floor and talk to the delegates. And I also had a working desk, if you will, in the press section where I was accredited by the Senate Press Gallery, United States Senate Press Gallery, who runs the accreditation for the daily newspaper, or used to, probably still does. I'd also walk the streets and talk to people. I remember in Denver in 2008 when President Obama ultimately was being nominated. I went and got my hair cut in a black district by a black gentleman who told me what he thought, and he really didn't think Obama would live long enough to even get the nomination. We're only about a week or so before that. And I would also go walk in usually there would be a parade, a demonstration parade on Sunday before the convention. Conventions usually ran from Monday to Thursday, always did. And there'd be a demonstration, a long parade, and I would go out and I'd just walk in the parade with people carrying signs, and they're wheeling their babies, and they're caring about our country, and really motivated to come down and to do that. And I'd walk along and talk to them, and didn't really matter, nor did anybody ever ask me my politics. I guess they assumed if I was at a Democratic convention covering it, I was a Democrat or a Republican. In reality, and I will share with you, I've always been a little bit right of center. On the other hand, I voted in several times in our national conventions for national elections. I voted for Obama once. I voted for John Kerry in 2004. And for reasons that I could share another time, but most of the time I would vote Republican. They would also have areas set aside for specific groups who could set up, and they would hand out their literature and so on. And in New York, I kind of lose the dates, but it was maybe 92 or maybe 04, I forget when all that we were in New York. But the entire block by the convention center, which was held at Madison Square Garden, was set up with all of these groups, those who were defending the seagulls in Wyoming, or just sometimes it was, bat crazy stuff, but they were there, and they would, in those earlier days before 9/11, before 2001, there were so many that wanted to come and have their say that they would rotate them through 24 hours a day. And you'd get, I don't know, a half hour, maybe a couple of hours to stand there and talk to anybody who wandered by. And I was one of the guys who'd always wander by. That all changed, by the way, after 2001 and the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and so on. That changed, and so that in Boston by 2004, they took all the demonstrators and they put them in a metal cage, which was not terribly accessible and not easy to get into. And by the time we got to Tampa in 2012, there were very few demonstrator groups, and they were placed quite a long way away from the convention hall. And indeed, to get to the convention hall was a long doggone walk. And so they had, by that time, they had set up this enormously wide perimeter. And they did the same thing in New York later on, where they basically walled off several blocks of that you couldn't get to, and they also ran they built a whole aerial walkway from Madison Square Garden over to the old U.S. Post Office. It's now the Amtrak Moynihan Train Hall. That's what the old post office became, beautiful old building. And we're checking your credentials constantly, which kind of slows up and what you can do. All right, so those are my credentials. Now let's talk about the current world that we're in. And we're in October, mid-October of 2025. And we've got a couple of elections coming up, and here's what I think, if anybody cares. I think the New Jersey race for governor is closing very quickly, and I expect the Republican, who's been behind pretty much all the way through it, and who also ran in 4 years ago and almost won. I think the Republican's going to win that one. Down in Virginia, you've got a attorney general candidate on the Democrat side who's many people feel is completely unfit. He's some old emails or messages and so forth he's posted about killing his opponents and their children, and it's been quite a stir. And it would, honestly, I'd be surprised. I went to school in Virginia. I have ties in Virginia. I'm not a native of the state, but I know the state very well, reasonably well. And I know the Northern Virginia, up around the Washington, D.C., is heavily Democratic. And so at best, Virginia's these days at very best slightly purple state, mostly blue. But it would not surprise me if the Democrat who is running for AG loses. I also kind of think that the Republican is a black lady, very smart, fine lady, who's running against Abigail Spanberger, who is running as the Democratic nominee for governor. Spanberger's been ahead throughout this, and you got to think that she'll go ahead and slip through here, but she hasn't done too well in the debates, and she has gotten herself wrapped up in a couple of issues where she's appeared, to some at least, to be a little too slippery. Virginians tend to vote for the governor, lieutenant governor, and AG all for one party. So if the Republican wins as the current governor of Virginia won back in 2021, they got a lieutenant governor and an attorney general, all who were Republican. So again, conventional wisdom says that if Spanberger wins, she's going to carry the other two, lieutenant governor and this gentleman who's running for AG, who has some problem, along. I tend to think if Spanberger wins, she's going to win very narrowly, and that people, unusually in Virginia, are going to split their ballots. And I'd kind of be surprised, knowing the cultural sense of Virginia, which is really old school and really has a strong, I don't want to say moral, but let's just say it's Virginia. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Virginians are not comfortable with electing this Democratic gentleman, name is Jay Jones, I think, as their Attorney General. Well, we'll see. Now, let's talk about the New York race, where a gentleman by the name of Mamdani is far ahead. And also there is a socialist Marxist running out in Minnesota for, I think, the mayor of Minneapolis. I'd have to check that. But anyway, those guys are doing pretty well. And Bernie Sanders would have, should have, might have gotten the nomination of the Democratic Party for president back in 2016. And I was, again, I was covering that convention, and I know that I know how that turned, and that they were pretty unhappy, the young folks who were there, and that Sanders got kind of slipped aside, and so on. So that's been a growing, and Sanders is technically a Democratic, Republican, an independent who votes always with the Democrats, and is pretty far over there on the left in what he's thinking. Well, Mamdani is too, and again, if these are quadrennial temperature taking of what's going on in our country, then we're learning something with how well Mr. Mamdani is doing, and how well this other gentleman, if I've got it right, is running out in Minnesota, how they're doing, and Bernie Sanders. So are we becoming more socialist and more Marxist? And I suppose we're going to find out. Now, who really matters in these elections? And it's the 18 to 30-year-olds. After 30, and those are the activists. They're young. They got a lot of energy. They're idealistic in many ways, and so they tend to drive the direction of our country. The over 30s, who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, react back to that and factor in the 18 to 30 folks, and who are also going to soon enough be in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And so you can see kind of what's coming here. And if it's true that group is becoming more leftist, then we can expect our country to become more leftist, with all of the potential ramifications of what that means. And finally, how is it that we are energizing that group? And I don't know how large it is, because most of everybody I know paid their student loans. And then an enormous number didn't go to college at all. And but then you have this 18 to 30 and much older, some are in the 50s now, and owing the government huge amounts that they borrowed to go to college, and got these degrees that may or may not have worked out too well for them. Well, that is potentially, I think, a real, particularly firebomb could be, because these people cannot get on with their lives. Now, if I borrow money, and I've borrowed a fair amount in my years, and I've paid it off. I run and work to pay it off. But there's a significant number of my fellow citizens, our fellow citizens, who borrowed very young, not really fully understanding the ramifications of it, to go to college, and those student debts are still there, weighing down whether they have kids or not, whether they can buy a house or not. And we're talking some folks in their 40s and 50s. And this is not a good thing. Now, when Biden said, we're going to forgive it all, come on, Joe, we can't do that. But I'm coming around on this, because I think it might be wise to diffuse this potential issue, firebomb, if you would, that might go off in certain ways that are not terribly good, and also might be, actually, quite honestly, fueling a little bit of the success of Mr. Mamdani and of Senator, the rightist and leftist senators and so on. So I will finally only say that we've become more and more a country of big, big companies and corporations. And when you are Walmart, or you are Big Oil or whatever, you know, people can look at this and they can say, well, you know, I can shoplift at Walmart. You won't miss it because it's insured and so forth and so on. And that doesn't happen 50 years ago when we were a nation still of shopkeepers, where, you know, you go up and down Main Street and all these little towns and not so little towns, and you had all these independent businessmen who were trying to, you know, make a living and raise their family and do forth, and meet a payroll on Friday, and were very close to their employees. And the employees could see that when they went home at 5, you know, the boss stayed there till 9 or 10 o'clock, and when they came in at 8, the boss had already been there an hour, hour and a half working, and so on. So they saw and were much closer to how money was made and what was fair and what wasn't fair and so on. And I sense that France seems to still be a nation of shopkeepers. Oh, France has got their problems, but I wonder whether we wouldn't be better if we were still a nation of shopkeepers. So anyway, check off my list. I think the Republican may well win in the governorship in New Jersey. It wouldn't surprise me if the Republican wins the governor in Virginia, although I'm kind of shaking my head at that. It also wouldn't surprise me if suddenly the New York race for Mr. Mamdani suddenly tightened up quite a lot in the final week or 2 or 3 before the election, and maybe if he wins, that he doesn't win by as much, and maybe, I don't think it'll happen, everybody says it's not going to happen, but maybe Mr. Mamdani does not win in New York City as the governor. And then finally we come to the gentleman who, the Democrat, Jay Jones, who is running for Attorney General in Virginia. And it would change my take on what I know about Virginia. I went to school in Virginia. My wife is from Virginia. I have spent a lot of time in Virginia. We have kids who are, they're no longer kids, but they're up in the Washington, D.C. area working. And so we have a little bit input there. And I think they're pretty democratic, the ones that were up there. But it wouldn't surprise me if the gentleman running for AG, Attorney General in Virginia, would lose. Okay, that's kind of Pete on politics today. And I kind of want to memorialize this. So now I have. And when I'm wrong, and I'm wrong a lot, we'll be able to run the tape back and go, see, you should have known better.